Okay, so guys, welcome to day 2 of Mastering Your Money. Today we're going to be talking about savings and where to find them. First off, when you think of savings, hey Simone, when you think of savings, you may think that it's something that's completely unobtainable for you. I've been in that position, guys, but I'm here to let you guys know that it is obtainable for everybody, no matter how much or how little money that you have coming in or going out. Savings is absolutely obtainable for everyone. So we're going to get into kind of like the different ways of how to have those savings start accumulating for you based on whatever your preference is. And in addition to that, we're going to be talking about different ways that you can start getting more income to be able to add to that if you feel that your income currently doesn't support exactly the amount of money that you want to start savings. So this is going to be a little bit different in the sense that I don't want you to think of just savings as planning for the future, because we're going to be talking about that later on in the week when we talk about investing in your future. So there's going to be two different types of savings and investing type things that we're going to be talking about this week. But today we're going to be talking about savings in the sense of one, savings for instance, if you wanted to go on a particular trip, or if you are saving up for a specific expense, maybe you're renovating your home, or maybe you needed a new vehicle. Hey, Virginia. Maybe there are an expansion in your business that you want. Whatever the case is, there's going to be different types of savings that we're going to be talking about and how you can go about trying to or begin saving for that. So savings for you may be different based on what you have coming in, like I said, but it's definitely obtainable for everybody. So a couple of things that I wanted you to kind of think about if you're struggling with saving. First off, a couple of options might be to talk to your bank about having an automatic withdrawal coming from your account. Now, this doesn't have to be like if you are working outside of the home and you have paychecks coming in. This is a little bit different than that, but I will talk about that in a moment. This would be, say, if you wanted a $50 like reduction in your whatever income you have coming in from any type of source, you can ask the bank to take a certain amount, whatever amount that is, to put into your savings account. Now, normally we recommend as accountants to try to put away 10% of whatever your income is coming in. Now, we're going to be talking about expenses and things like that later on in the week. So for this purpose, I don't want you to start stressing about thinking, okay, well, I've only got this much money coming in and I've got this much money going out, and there's absolutely no way that I could start saving, because I don't want you to stress about that. We're going to be finding other ways to work around your expenses later on in this week to be able to show you that this is absolutely obtainable no matter how much money you have coming in. So savings is a vital thing. I don't want you to think of it as an option because truly it's not. And like I said, we're going to be talking about, I think it's on Thursday that I've designated for investing in your future. So we're going to be talking about how that savings is truly not just beneficial, but it's crucial in order to ensure your longevity and your future. But in the short term, in this particular sense, we're going to be talking about, like I said, planning for, say, savings for a rainy day, savings for covering your basic monthly expenses. We talked about your monthly nut in the sense that you want to make sure that you have figured out what your base minimum is that you would need to survive. So your rental payment or your mortgage payment, your food for the month, your gas, your essentials, just essentials, not your utilities and all those things, because utilities can, you don't want to put them off, but if you absolutely had to in an emergency situation, what are the bare minimum expenses that you would need to cover within that month, within a 30-day period or even a month and a half for you and your household. So it's recommended that you try to plan to have enough savings in your savings account for if you have like 2 adults in your home or 2 adults and a child, however many people are in your home, that you try to have saved a month and a half's worth of that monthly nut, that very base minimum in your savings account. Now that again is something that you don't want to touch. As you start building that up, you don't want to be pulling from that. So there's a couple of options for that. You can speak to your bank. There are options where you can, if you are finding that you're dipping into it, you can actually ask your bank to put stipulations on it for you. And of course, in an emergency situation, there are ways to work around that to get those stipulations lifted. But if you're finding that you are kind of going in and drawing from that money quite often, you know, you're kind of relying on the fact that it's there as extra cash, then one thing you could talk to the bank about is removing it from your debit card. So when you go in to actually swipe your debit card, if you're used to using your debit card to pay for just about anything, which most of us are doing these days, then one way to avoid your temptation to dip into your savings that you've been adding to is to have the bank remove that option. So you would only be able to say dip into your checking account, and in order to access your savings account you would actually have to go into the bank to do that with a teller. And you'd be surprised that just by changing that little tweak of your bank card can actually prevent you from, you know, going and using that savings and kind of relying on it as a backup for, you know, everyday expenses or frivolous purchases and things like that, because of the fact that it's not readily available, and kind of doing the walk of shame of going up to the teller, so to speak, to say like, hey, can I pull some of that money out so I can go and buy this new TV? You know, obviously they're not going to give you a hard time about it. It's your money, and you can do with it however you like, but it's that mindset of letting your body and your mind know that, okay, this probably isn't the wisest thing. Do I really need to purchase this thing that I'm trying to get today? You know, is it a frivolous purchase, or is it something that our house or family truly needs, or our business needs? And so it just kind of starts making you think differently about your savings. So that's one tip that I can really give you that has been really beneficial to both me and our family and our clients, to help prevent you from dipping into that savings. So going back to how you can start getting those deposits. If you're struggling like with actually taking money from your checking account, we'll say, we're assuming that you have a checking and a savings at this point. If you're struggling with taking money from your checking account and putting it into your savings, then like I said, you can speak to your bank and have them set you up with an automatic withdrawal from your account, whatever amount you choose, and put it in there. Now, one of my sisters, I have many, one of my sisters, when she was in college, she was probably about, I think 19 or 20 at the time. I remember her even at that point in time, so it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are, requesting that they even take $5 a week. So $20 a month doesn't sound like much, but it added up really, really quickly, and it allowed her to learn how to just kind of have that money going without actually seeing it. So sometimes it's, again, that mindset of, you know, losing, but you're not losing, you're gaining, because you're growing it for purposes over here as both emergency and for those rainy day funds. You know, treat yourself to a trip, you and your husband or your spouse, or, you know, take the kids to, you know, whatever, buy that new car, whatever it is. And you can even have more than one savings account as well. So whatever the case is, if you're struggling, like I said, with pulling that money from letting go from your checking account into the savings, then the best thing to do is to have the bank set you up with these automatic withdrawals and put them into whichever accounts for savings that you wish them to be deemed to. The other option is, if you are working outside the home and you have paychecks coming in, then you can request that every time you have deposits coming into your bank account, you can have the bank take a specific percentage of your check and have that put into your savings account as well. And what this does is it allows you to kind of not see that this is happening. It kind of happens behind the scenes, and also cutting out expenses. That's a big part of it. But absolutely, if you're paying down debt, that of course is a precedent that you don't want to alter. However, it's still important that even while you're paying off your debts, that you are still saving, because what happens is you start to have to adjust what your living costs are. So there are ways to cut that back, and that's what we're going to be kind of diving into in a different day this week, and letting you know different ways, just kind of get you thinking about different things that you could possibly cut out of your everyday living expenses, which will allow that money that you are not necessarily needing to spend on a monthly basis, that would be able to not only just pay off your debt, but also be able to go into savings, because you want to be able to build that nest egg. So the other thing is, you could, if you're struggling as well with having the extra cash to put into your savings. So if, for instance, with Virginia's example, if you're struggling to pay off the debt and you have your everyday living expenses and you're still struggling and you're thinking, okay, there's really not much on top of that I have to be able to go into my savings account. The other thing you could look at is looking at a second side hustle, or another side hustle if you have several, because some of us are multifaceted business owners. So if you are finding that, then maybe it's just simply picking up a couple of extra shifts, thinking of something in the community that you could do that doesn't require maybe a lot of time, but it would bring in another income stream, any way to be able to expand that, to be able to bring more income in, to be able to designate to that. And you could, if that's the case, maybe designate the entire amount. Like maybe if it's just 4 or 5 hours extra a week, we'll say, you could designate that particular amount to go into your savings account, and that way there it's not even like part of the equation currently. So that means that it's not affecting anything that you're putting towards your debts. It's not affecting anything that you're putting towards your current expenses. If you're feeling like just that little bit of putting into savings based on what you already have coming in and going out would kind of tip the scale for you. If that's the case, then I would suggest maybe not touching, altering anything to do with that budget if you've already created one that is working really well for you. And in addition to that though, then finding an extra income source or income stream to be able to put into the savings account. And that way there you're still balancing everything that you're already doing, but also planning for that rainy day emergency fund. And as well, on top of that, of course, I always recommend to have a little bit of play money. And it's important to have that play money because I think in today's society, especially with the amount of debt that people go into, that by always thinking about, okay, well, I have to live off of this, I have to make this much to live off of this, and also to pay off all of this debt. And then what happens is you end up with so much stress that you're not looking after yourself and taking the time to just live, because it's important that you're not just working to pay off debt. It's important that you're also working to get that extra money to be able to enjoy life. It's very important. And a lot of people have asked me over the years, they used to say, especially when I was in Nova Scotia, our incomes were much lower than what they are out here. And we weren't working for ourselves. We were working for the man, as we say. And we were constantly taking the kids on camping trips on the weekends, and going out to eat and all these things. But we had made a decision as a family that especially during the summertime and the warm weather, we would completely cut off our cable. We only kept our internet. We would cut off all the extras, anything that we could cut corners, we were cutting off. And with that money that we would have been putting into things that really weren't being used or needed, we were able to take that money and then take the kids on like a camping trip for the weekend. And to us, that was more beneficial. So it just comes down to really finding out what works for you and your household and what you want to do to be able to, really enjoy life. But I highly encourage whatever it is that makes you guys happy, that you want to go out and do. If it's go out for a few drinks, go out to grab some ice cream, go out to eat once a week or a couple times a week, whatever the case is, just plan that. If you plan ahead for those types of things, and it allows you to have the freedom to just know that you're not stressed, like you don't feel guilty about going out to eat. You're like, okay, no, this is great. This is part of my plan. This is part of my monthly thing with my husband or my spouse, and it becomes fun, and it takes that onus off of it, and it allows you to kind of own it, know that it's part of what you want, and plan for your future. The other thing I wanted to mention too, it's been fun for some families as well, and even for couples. And there's I can't remember the Canadian show, but there's a Canadian show, Canadian show that teaches money management. Sometimes people are visual. If you're visual and you feel like having a savings account is not the best thing for you, but you are able to abstain from being trapped by taking, like if you see cash in a jar, for instance, that you've saved up and you're like, oh, I just want to spend it so bad. If you're like that, then this is not going to work for you. But if you're not like that, if you're like have really good self-control, what they have recommended is to have different jars based on saving for specific things. So if you're saving for instance, going to Disney, then you could have a jar on the table or counter, wherever, and have the whole family be part of it and say, guys, look, every time you have loose change or, like a couple of bucks, whatever, maybe it's anything under $5 in your change or in your pocket or whatever, put it into the jar, and we'll just continuously watch this grow, and you'll be surprised how quick that those things add up, like really, really quickly. And you can have them for different things, and it becomes kind of a fun thing. And sometimes what's really funny is if you have guests over, they'll be like, what's that? And then you tell them, and then they'll be like, oh, I could change. I want to throw that in there too. and it's really funny, but your friends will oftentimes actually start contributing, and it will encourage them to do it too. So it kind of becomes like this little fun thing between you and your people, your family and your friends, whoever's coming through your home, to be able to see this thing grow. And as doing that, it actually creates this mindset of wanting to add more and more and more and more. And so if you're struggling with letting the money go into a savings account, into an actual bank account, then maybe that's an option for you as well. I wanted to give you in bite-sized pieces this week, and that way they're to encourage you to be able to start implementing them today, because today you guys could make those phone calls to the bank to set those accounts up or the withdrawals up, or you could go out and make it fun, have get those big pickle jars or something and decorate them for whatever the savings are that you're going to be saving for. But honestly, the main thing first and foremost is to make sure you have that monthly net amount to cover those emergency basics. So a month and a half per person in the household is recommended, and yes, it takes a little bit of time to get there, and that's okay. Don't feel like you have to save everything, every single penny, right now, but just planning for that rainy day to ensure that you have that peace of mind, knowing that it's there if something happened, that you fell ill, or whatever happens, because life happens, so we have to kind of plan for life to happen. So thanks so much, guys, and I look forward to sharing tomorrow with you for day 3. I hope this has been helpful. Let me know in the comments what your biggest takeaway was, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow.